whole thing being done at the end of April. And with that, of course, we'll take any questions here at the end, but I'd like to turn it over to Ken and Johnny to talk about the actual details of this.
Okay, this is Ken Kaltenbach. Thank you, Steve. And at the very beginning of this, we, with the help of C2 Strategic, laid out a stakeholder and public engagement plan and wrote a communications plan, and that is it has been approved by the cabinet, and we've used that as a guide throughout our project. And so we're looking to get buy-in throughout the state, and that's why we're doing this, so that we get buy-in and also get information from the various districts and ads and things like that, so we know what's going on. So we have our project team, basically the center office, the district engineers, the highway district leaders, and certain MPO and ad representatives. We have planning partners that they're all other MPO and ad leaders. They're key stakeholders, and we've got a long list of those, but those are folks throughout the state that may have inputs to the plan, and then also the public. And so we've developed branding. You can see this Lincoln, Kentucky logo that we're using. We've got a database of the stakeholders and grass tops, and we have a website ready to publish, and we will publish it when we get the okay from the cabinet. And also at that point be able to use social media to get input. And then we're trying to be proactive about the media relations. So we have a total program for that, and it's been very helpful. Steve will go on to the next one. So the first thing we had to do is there's an awful lot of roads in Kentucky, and what are we going to study? Well, we started, luckily we had a tool, and it's something that we're really plugged into, and that's our statewide travel demand model, and that gave us a good database to start with. So we wanted to identify 52 major corridors, and these aren't, in most cases, very short corridors. They're long corridors, and there's 52 of them, and we use those to see what was on the national highway system, what roads had high traffic volumes, which had high functional classifications, and we got feedback from the project team and planning partners to identify those. So we came up with 52 of those corridors, and they appear as the red corridors on this map. And all of this stuff, we have very detailed maps, and I know this is hard to see on this presentation. So all of this exists in other formats that we can provide to show you more detail. There are 10 corridors we call flagged corridors, and those are corridors that other planning work is being done, and so there's no sense for us to study them again. And that's generally the interstates, the parkways, and other major roadways where are detailed studies going on that certainly are going to be more detailed than anything we can do in the statewide plan. So there's 10 of those. And then we identified 5 gap corridors that will be that we've analyzed separately, and these are, we tried to evaluate the need for obvious missing links in the system, and you see those sort of in the tan swaths on the map. And so these are places where you look at it and you say, well, there's some reason why you might want to look at some brand new corridors where no continuous road exists right now. So so you see those 5 on this map. So that's what we did initially to come up with the statewide network. And this is the list that we're going to study in the detail then is with those 52 statewide corridors. Steve? Okay, so then you can see here what those 52 statewide corridors are. And with each one of those, we went through them in great detail to come up with a long set of evaluation measures so that we can give them a score and give them some priorities to figure out what survives to the next to the next tier. And Steve here, and so we generally looked at mobility, accessibility, and safety. And we got the information from the online survey that we sent out to our project team and key stakeholders. So, and we've got, we sent the questions to 1,500 members. We got really good response on it, and that's how we decided what those scores and the percentages weight for each one of those issues. And so we looked at mobility, accessibility, and safety. And with the mobility, we looked at delays, base year in the future, and whether it had direct connections to multimodal hubs, airports, river ports, and things like that. We did an accessibility index in that we were looking at the market, in other words, persons and jobs served by each one of the corridors. And we also looked at the vehicular time spent in each corridor from some major movements. And then we looked in great detail at safety. And we used a lot of the cabinet safety statistics to come up with that. So those are the three major things that we used to sift through the tier one corridors and give them a score and come up with some priorities to identify the top corridors. And so, as Steve said, we came up with 26 top arterial corridors that have the highest tier one scores, and this does not include the interstates and the parkways. And the interstates and the parkways will be in a separate study. So the tier one corridors are being now, and the next slides will, and Johnny will explain that, studied in detail, and we broke them into segments, and I'll let Johnny give the details of that.
Thank you, Ken. Just as Ken described in the past few slides, the Tier 1 identifies 26 long arterial corridors, and these long arterial corridors are further divided into 45 shorter segments and are carried forward to the Tier 2 prioritization. While the Tier 1 identifies the 26 long corridors that might, have the most needs for improvements, the Tier 2 prioritization basically, pay much attention to the magnitude of the benefits that the corridor improvements could bring to the state of Kentucky. And for the Tier 2, we developed a very comprehensive rating system. You can see the index and some performance on the right side of the slide. This rating system covers 6 aspects of the corridor performance. For mobility, we account for the congestion relief by corridor improvements at both corridor level and the statewide level. the corridor level truck flows are also accounted for. We also developed kind of a independent reliability bonus. It's something like, it's kind of a performance measures that present the percentage of the total corridor VMT that is determined as unreliable based on the traffic model data and the observed speed data provided by KYTC. The accessibility index basically includes the long trips served by the corridor segments. Here, we define the long trip as 50 miles or longer. We also take a look at the travel time savings along the corridor if we build those proposed improvement concepts. The safety index will kind of calculate the fatal and incapacitating injuries per mile along the corridor. We also calculate the percent access crash along the corridor by using some safety crash data from KYTC. The infrastructure index take a look at both pavement and bridge conditions by using, the pavement PDI values and the bridge sufficiency ratings from KYTC. The tier 2 also include a economic index, which estimate the new jobs created and the gross state product growth due to the corridor improvements in the next 25 years. Then we also have a kind of independent multi-infrastructure bonus. This factor basically represents the opportunity of the proposed improvement concepts that could promote alternative infrastructure or multimodal solutions. So, similar as the tier 1 activity, all this, index or the scoring system have the weighting factors that are derived by an online survey with about 1,500 members from our project team and key stakeholders. In addition to the quantitative performance measures I just talked in the last slide, the tier 2 rating system also incorporates some qualitative performance indicators. We have 3 of them. The project delivery timeline basically evaluates how fast to deliver the improvement concepts to the market. The economic feasibility is basically the benefit cost ratio. It's a good indicator of how effective the corridor improvement could promote the economy for the entire state. We also have a cost here. I mean, it will be a total cost, including design, right-of-way, utility, and construction cost. All of these 3 performance indicators is not a part of the tier 2 scores. However, they will be displayed side by side with the corridor scores to support the selection of final top 20 corridors towards the corridor visioning. One major effort of the tier 2 is the corridor scoping for all the 45 corridor segments. So our consulting team is working on a planning level assessment of existing conditions for all the 45 corridor segments. At this point, KYTC is reviewing some some data we've already put together, but we are still in a process to finalize the scoping report. But anyway, in general, the scoping report include key characteristics and attributes of the roadways. We also take a look at the traffic and the safety data, identify the bottlenecks and the hotspot that might have traffic safety concerns throughout our future year 2045. We also reviewed the bridge and the pavement data, to determine, hey, what bridges need to be rehab or replacement, and what is the general average pavement condition along this corridor, and if there is a need to repave the corridors. We also did some very preliminary red flag analysis within 1,000 feet buffer of each corridor to see if there is any critical red flag concerns or issues within the proximity of the project that might affect the project. We also take a quick look at the existing right-of-way along each corridor, and as part of our scoping report, we also made some recommendations. Hey, if additional right-of-way will be needed to support the proposed improvement concept. So based on a comprehensive review of the data in this scoping report, KYTC and our consulting team are working together to make recommendations on practical improvement concepts. At this point, our consulting team is coding these improvement concepts into our model and do some benefit analysis. For each improvement concepts along the corridors, the cost is also estimated by typical cost, per mile or per interchange or per intersection. Using some real cost data provided by KYTC. Basically, we have established a kind of categories of the improvement concepts. So we have different typical cost data corresponding to each improvement categories. So basically, we will end up with a very comprehensive data set for each corridor through this corridor scoping activity. And this will be a very good exercise to prepare for the corridor visioning, because many of the corridor scoping data will be used in the corridor scoping. So this will be a very solid foundation for our next steps.
And I'll say with this too, Johnny, basically, even if a corridor doesn't make it to visioning, if it made it to tier 2, it's going to have one of these scoping reports behind it. And you can think of it, for the other planners in the room, it's basically a beefed up DNA that we'll have for all 45 of these corridor segments, where we've got a lot of background data, and we've even done a little bit of scoping on the front end to see what's long term, what might be feasible, but also identifying like bottlenecks and other places where some spot improvements might be warranted. So it's a DNA for all of these corridors available on the front end as any of these corridors move forward outside of this plan.
Yes. So right now we are in the middle of a tier 2 analysis. Our consulting team are finalizing the corridor scoping reports. For all the 45 corridor segments. And as just as Steve mentioned, even though we only have a top 20 moving forward to the corridor visioning, we still have the scoping reports for all other corridors that might be useful for KYTC's future use. At this point, KYTC has approved all the proposed improvement concepts, and we are coding these projects to the statewide traffic model, do some traffic modeling and economic analysis, to evaluate, hey, how much benefit those improvements will bring to the state. In the meanwhile, we are also working on reviewing the safety data, bridge pavement data, and multimodal opportunities along each corridor to support our tier 2 scoring. So from that perspective, our next step will be we plan to have our draft tier 2 scoring ready by mid next month. Then we will share the results with our planning partners and the project team. Hopefully, we can get some valuable, useful comments back from them. This will give us about 1.5 months to finalize our tier 2 scoring and towards the final top 20 segments for the corridor visioning by the end of this year. So our plan is starting from next January, we will jump into the corridor visioning activities. The corridor visioning is something like kind of a planning level, high level corridor profiles of each top 20 corridor segments. We will include comprehensive planning elements, in the corridor visioning, by including current future conditions, identifying needs, issues for each segments. Also, we will make recommendations, on the corridor improvement by using a planning level, non-project specific approach for midterm 2030 and long-term 2045. And Steve, I know that we probably need more discussion about how to engage the public in corridor visioning, but at least I think we will do some extensive outreach to stakeholders to collect their inputs and include this information as part of the corridor visioning.
Absolutely.
Okay. Another important component of the corridor visioning is that we plan to develop a GIS online tool. That is something similar as what we have done for other state DOTs. This tool will be a GIS-based interactive platform to display all the top 20 corridor segments, summarize the corridor data, and disseminate this information with our planners or even public for our planning purpose. We've discussed this idea with KYTC. We think this sounds a very nice approach to promote this study. We probably can develop different versions. Like for the KYTC internal version or a public version. We still need some more discussion with KYTC. Then the project will be done by next April. We will prepare a final report to summarize to describe our analysis methodology and summarize the corridor data, highlights our major findings. In addition to the final report, we will also prepare the corridor profile fact sheets for each corridor. Hopefully that will make things easier for KYTC and other planning partners in their future planning job that is related to our study corridor. So I think that is pretty much about what we plan to present today. Steve, I'm turning this over back to you.
Yeah, thank you all for going through that with us. let's see. I can stop sharing. Has anyone had any questions come in that we need to answer?
Steve, I see one from Bob Kaler and Amanda Spencer. They were talking about maybe, it says, like to get a copy of cost estimates by improvement type just for future reference.
Sure, and yeah, and I'll say too, those are parametric costs, and they are per mile, and they were basically developed using some data from various districts. For like mountainous terrain, we got from Jason Blackburn. For District 6 type terrain with urban stuff, we got from Dane Blackburn, and in kind of the middle type of terrain, we got from District 8 and Jeff Dick. And so yeah, we can provide those, but use them with a sizable amount of salt if you want to use them for more specific purposes than looking at a 120-mile long corridor.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That was a lot of information. It's good information. It's kind of interesting seeing that study next to like Shift, because Shift has formulas and you guys have the formulas, and it's kind of neat to see how they're jiving and any suggestions or how we're going to actually, how we're going to use it in long range plan. That kind of stuff it'll be interesting to see how that works together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good presentation. Let's see. Does anybody else have any questions? I'm looking at the chat box. That's all I see in the chat box. So when do we think, what's the deadline? Did you already say the deadline, like when we're hoping to finish it?
We'll have like solid info on the on what corridors are moving on to vision, what our top 20 like segments are going to be by Christmas, and then everything will be done in April.
Okay. Yeah, cool. All right, thanks, guys. Let me see. Next up is the Title VI training. So let me see. Vincent Thomas emailed me a little earlier. I think he was having a little trouble connecting with his audio on Blue Jeans, but I think he's called in. Let me see if I can get his phone number. Or Tiffany Squire, I think, is kind of in that group as well. Maybe send me a phone number or something. I see there's several people are called in here. Let me see if I can unlock his phone number so he can talk to us. Vincent, you on here?
I am on here. However, I apologize for the technical difficulties. I cannot even see my PowerPoint. But I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try to bring this up. Let's see. Okay. I have my PowerPoint in front of me. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me.
Yeah, okay, and I can bring it up here on my screen and share it.
Well, I can't see the screen, so you can.
Just holler at me like your page number or something, and I'll say okay.
All right. Well, I have page 1 up now.
Okay, we see the Title VI. Expectation. Okay, let me read your bio here before I forget. All right. So Mr. Vincent Thomas. Okay, senior is he's an administrative branch manager, KYTC Title VI officer in the Office for Civil Rights and Small Business Development, which includes acting executive director Melvin Bynes, administrative branch manager Michael Brad Putty, program investigative officers Casey Ramsey Johnson, Tiffany Squire, Jamie Tyler, Adam, Holly Wilson, and program coordinator Megan Tillman. And so I see a few things here with what your office actually does. Vincent, maybe give us a brief overview of that and then head on in.
Well, the Office of Civil Rights and Small Business, and thank you for that introduction.
Yeah, you're welcome.
The Office of Civil Rights and Small Business Development, what we do is a couple of different things. In our Civil Rights branch, we investigate any type of issues that deal with discrimination. That could be, of course, related to age, sex, religion, political affiliation, such and so on. In particular, we always look at those investigations thoroughly, and they may happen on the EEO side, the ADA side, or even the Title VI side. So all those investigations will come through our office. We're also responsible for Title VI plans that we have to submit to Federal Highway Administration. Our office submits two particular plans. One is a Title VI program plan, which is due on the 1st of October, and we also have to submit a Title VI Goals and Accomplishment Plan that is due on the 1st of November. So we have those responsibilities as well. In addition to those responsibilities, the Office of Civil Rights and Small Business Development, we also have 15 sub-recipients that we review their Title VI plans, and we review them annually, and to make sure that we're following all the rules and regulations of Federal Highway Administration. At this particular time, I do want to acknowledge Leslie O'Brien from Federal Highway Administration and my good friend Bernadette DuPont from Federal Highway Administration. These ladies have a great wealth of knowledge, and I know Bernadette is a little bit new to that side, and we really appreciate her coming aboard. But getting into our presentation, our Title VI expectations and responsibilities. Now I'm going to go to slide number 2, to our objectives. All these objectives here, and what we want to do is make Title VI in a plain language. And we also want to understand those laws and those authorities, understand the compliance with the Title VI, and discussing those components of those implementation plans. Now, on slide 3, what is Title VI? And people always have different opinions about this, and they kind of get it confused with EEO, and sometimes in a nutshell, it kind of ties into that. But federal law, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, I am sure we've all heard of this enacted law. No person in the United States shall, on the ground of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, denied the benefits of, or subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Now, what does that mean? If you are receiving federal funds, Federal Highway Administration, or that could even be Federal Transit Administration in some circumstances, there are certain things that you have to do, and this points that out. On slide number 4, it does discuss the non-discrimination laws and executive orders. Title VI Act of 1964 we just discussed, Civil Rights Restoration Act of 87, but I'm going to go down to Executive Order 13166 and Executive Order 1289A. Now, in these Title VI program plans, there are sections in these particular plans where we are helping those individuals with limited English proficiency, or they're helping those individuals through those environmental justice. Now, there are some very different components on how we interact with these LEP individuals and the individuals through environmental justice. But I'm going to go on to slide number 5 here. We're going to talk about what is discrimination. It's the action or inaction, whether intentional or unintentional, through which a person in the U.S. solely based upon distinctively protected attributes is subjected to disparate treatment or impact in any program activity, again, receiving those federal funds from FHWA. Now, on slide number 6, some different types of discrimination: denial of program service, financial aid, or benefits. Now, I'm going to stop right there for just a second. discrimination can be something that is blatant, or it could be something that we're not even realizing that we're doing. And I want to give you an example on an occurrence that could be discriminatory. Hypothetically, you have a person that does not speak English well. They come into your office. They're trying to receive a particular service, and we tell them, since you don't speak English, you have to come back with a translator. That's not right. That is a part of discrimination that we all must eliminate. So that's just one example, or providing different type of program services or financial aid. Again, if I have a subrecipient and I'm only going to give subrecipient A X amount of funds, but subrecipient B, they don't really, get back with us like they're supposed to. So we're going to lower that. That's discrimination. So any types of inaction or action, whether we know about it or not, we could be discriminated against some individuals, either coming down here, segregating or separately treating individuals or groups in any manner relating to a receiver of program, financial aid, or benefit. Now, I'm going to give you another example of a company that I used to work for, how we were discriminating against individuals that were injured. While I was at this company, I was over the restricted duty program. This program was helpful for those individuals in the workforce that may have become injured on the job. However, they may not have been injured so much that they had to kind of stay home or even go on workman's comp. Nevertheless, when we decided that we are going to identify these individuals by changing the color of their hard hats, that became a problem. What happened? We had individuals, they became injured on the job. I had to go out and find them and make sure they were working within their responsibilities. But management decided they wanted to put pink hard hats on these individuals to make them stand out. And boy, they did. But as soon as that happened, we got complaints after complaints after complaints. And the individuals were saying, you're treating me different than the other employees in here because I'm injured. And they were absolutely right. So those were that's another form of discrimination that we must avoid, if all possible, of course. On slide number 7, it talks about desperate treatment. We won't spend too much time here. Desperate treatment refers to the action that results in a situation or a similarly situated persons or intentionally treated differently than others because of their race, color, national origin. Of course, those are the demographics of our Title VI and what we must protect. So if we're treating those individuals different because of their race, color, or national origin, then we're allowing desperate treatment for those particular individuals as well. Slide 8, where it talks about desperate impact, refers to the action in which the recipients, in violation of agency regulations, using an unbiased procedural practice that has adverse effect on members of a group based on, again, race, color, national origin. An example, such practical lack of substantial limit justification. We have a lot of things going on right now in our country that are a little uncomfortable to a lot of individuals. And we see some individuals getting treated different, and it may not be something that they realize what's happening, but it's because their race, color, or national origin is something that are being identified as far as discrimination. And that will relate to desperate impact. So again, we must always treat everyone fairly. Ask particular questions. How can I assist you? Go the extra mile for that particular person. Always using best practices. When we're dealing with the public, it will assist in long ways for success. Now, on slide number 9, desperate impact or desperate treatment. Now, I'm going to give you the example here, and the answer is already provided. A public transit system in service at 10 p.m. Yet late night customers are primarily Hispanic because many people in the Hispanic community depend upon public transportation for a late shift. Now, of course, that's desperate impact because it is impacting those individuals of Hispanic heritage there. Now, on slide number 10, talks about minority and women representation on planning boards and commission. This is something that is very advisable. If there's going to be some new roads that are going to be going through somebody's subdivision that's been there for the last 25 years, if that subdivision has members that want to be on the board, they want to know about the planning that's going on, that should be very welcome. In particular with those women and minorities, they should definitely be on that board. They should definitely have a seat on that commission as well. Now on slide 11, compliance. Who must comply? We all must comply. Recipients, and I'll say this again, recipients of federal financial aid must comply with the various Title VI non-discrimination laws and regulations. A recipient is an entity or an individual to whom federal assistance is provided. That's 23 CFR 200.5. The recipients and the contractors, regardless of the tier, are required to prevent discrimination and ensure non-discrimination in all their programs and activities. So this is something that is definitely achievable once we treat our customers with respect and we give them the service that they're looking for, going, again, above and beyond for those individuals, applying those best practices of your organization, that will help you go a long way. Slide number 12, compliance again. Federal aid or financial assistance can be in the form grant or direct funding, grant or donation of federal property, or equipment and training, or detail of federal personnel, selling, leasing permission to use that federal property. So if any of these occurrences are directed to you, then you have obligations to produce your annual Title VI plan. On slide 13, continuing with compliance here. In order to be in compliance with Title VI subrecipients and contractors, this is not, we want you to do it. This is a must. This is what the law is saying. This is no, I think I might. No, you must appoint a Title VI coordinator. You must develop a Title VI implementation plan. Within that plan, and our 15 subrecipients, I'm going to brag on them right now. For the last 3 years, we've had 100% compliance with these subrecipients turning in their plans timely. They have the limited English proficiency sections in there. They have the sections of the environmental justice, and they do a great job illustrating their public participation plans from the different counties across Kentucky. So again, I want to give that shout out to our 15 subrecipients that we oversee from the Office of Civil Rights and Small Business Development. Again, saying out here with compliance, providing Title VI training for all of its employees. Now, this training, it can come in some different forms. One thing that we recommend that our subrecipients do, and we would recommend this for anyone, during your orientation, you can start your Title VI training right there. We also have some tools on our website, the Office of Civil Rights and Small Business Development, just in case you need to reach out to us and you may want to utilize some of these tools. We're here to help, and that's what we will do for you. Again, you must have those Title VI assurances signed. we have been notified by FHWA that these assurances must be signed annually. And the grievance and complaint procedure, it must be in place. We do recommend that you have your complaint forms in there. We know the demographics across Kentucky is changing. We do recommend that you have that form in Spanish for this year. Now, what you may see, we'll have a new census coming out in 2021, and we're going to look at our demographics again. So we may have to look at some of our vital documents just to ensure that some of the demographics have not changed, and we may have to have other documents translated in different languages. Again, using those best practices to assist with our service base. And the last point on slide 13 here, we monitor our subrecipients and contractors for Title VI compliance. I will say, working with our 15 subrecipients, I do feel I know we have a great rapport with them. So if there's any questions that they have for us, we will definitely be there for them. And that's for anyone as well. If you have any questions concerning Title VI, yes, please contact our office. Keep going here on slide 14, staying with compliance. Develop the Title VI implementation plan. Now, what we're going to do, and when we get your plan, we're going to look at your plan to ensure you have all the components that are required. We use the same checklist as FHWA. And if you need that checklist, again, you can contact us, in particular, Tiffany Squire at ky.gov. She is our Title VI coordinator. Casey Ramsey Johnson, she is our Title VI liaison. Both of these individuals are a great resource just in case you need or you have any additional questions. Again, I will say we are here to help. And staying here, that plan, it communicates how the organization agency will implement Title VI requirements such as LEP, LEP, and environmental justice. The plan also discusses procedures, strategies, and goals to ensure non-discrimination. Now, one thing that you'll see that in compliance, and back to this point, the plan also discusses procedures, strategies, activities, and goals to ensure non-discrimination. This is a suggestion that we're going to have for you. If you have a plan, or you have a plan that's been acted, or you're going to enact that plan, we would recommend you put that on special emphasis. So that's telling us exactly what you're doing to ensure non-discrimination. That plan also must identify the Title VI coordinator. Now, what we do for our subrecipients and even our plan as well, we have an organizational chart. And we've been informed by FHWA that the Title VI coordinator must, and I say must, have direct access to that executive director or that business officer or whoever that person is that's been delegated to oversee that Title VI plan of that organization. So that is something that is something that's a must. You must identify that Title VI coordinator, even their contact email, their phone number, name, such and so on in that plan. And of course, within that Title VI implementation plan or program plan that I call it, it contains the complaint and grievance procedures and those Title VI policy statement and signed assurances. Again, those assurances must be signed annually and along with that policy statement. Those complaint procedures in your plan, they must identify what you are going to do when you receive a complaint. They must identify how long the time period is for that complaint to open or for that to close. And I think most of you have 180 days in your plan. So those are things that must be identified as well. On slide number 15, discussing the limited English proficiency. This is, again, going back to the Executive Order 13166, requiring federal agencies, including those agencies who receive federal funds, to examine the service they provide, identify any needs for the services of those with limited English proficiency, and develop an implementation system to provide those services to LEP persons that can have meaningful access to them. This is, LEP is something that's very, very big right now at the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. We are writing some different plans to ensure that we are identifying how we are going to service those individuals with a limited English proficiency. So we besides our Title VI plan, we're also creating a totally different LEP plan and how we are going to act with the public as well. Slide 16, staying with that compliance. Who is an LEP person? That person is someone who does not speak English as their primary language, has the limited ability to read, speak, and write and understand English. Now, in that plan as well, you have to identify how does your organization, agency assist customers that do not speak English. Again, telling those individuals you have to come back with a translator, that is not how it's done. That is discriminatory. That's a discriminatory practice, and we don't want to do that. And slide 17, staying with LEP and compliance here, in order to determine the most effective way to service LEP populations, you must have that four-factor analysis. And this is something that we see in all of our subrecipients plan as well as ours. That first factor, the number of LEP persons eligible to be served or likely to be encountered by the program or recipient. Second point, the frequency with LEP persons come into contact with your program. So, in your plan, I would suggest you may have a particular time period, of course, when everything kind of opens back up and we're not regulated by COVID, but you may want to do a pilot, maybe for like 6 weeks, to see what type of individuals that come into your facility or your organization. You can identify them if they're speaking Spanish, French, and by identifying those individuals, it's going to give you a very good idea of how your limited English proficiency public will interact with your community. And I'll give you another hypothetical example. Now, Mr. Melvin Bynes, he's always informed me in the Bowling Green area, there are more individuals that speak Bosnian, Bowling Green, Kentucky. Now that's what he's informed me. So maybe those facilities in that area, if those individuals are speaking Bosnian consistently, then we probably need to start having some of our vital documents transposed in that Bosnian language. So that's going to be very important. So once we identify that frequency with those LEP persons, we can identify how we can serve them better. And number 3 here on a four-factor analysis, the nature and importance of the program, activity, or service provided by the program to people's lives. Again, if I spoke a particular language and it wasn't English, however, if I knew I could go to a facility and they're going to assist me without any hassle, if you will, I'm probably going to keep going to that particular service because they serve me well. So that's going to be important to those particular individuals, those with a limited English proficiency. And again, that activity or service provided by the program to people's lives. So that's very important. And last point for the form factor analysis here, the resources available to the recipient for LEP outreach as well as the costs related with that outreach. Now, that's one thing we didn't talk about, the cost of some of these things. And believe me, FHWA understands. Kentucky Transportation Cabinet understands. We know some of us don't even have the budget to go out there and hire this particular translator or get this particular document transposed. What I would recommend is this is something that isn't something we shall do again. Once that particular section of your public has been identified and recorded, this is something we must do. No, this is a must. We must find ways to speak to those individuals with limited English proficiency. We must also continue to serve that public as just as anyone else that spoke English. So we must continue to go on above and beyond to ensure compliance with LEP individuals. On slide 18, and this is what I was just kind of talking about with some of those individuals with limited English proficiency with our safe harbor provision. And that means in particular that if an organization or agency provides written translation under this provision, such action will be considered strong evidence of compliance with the organization's written translation obligation. So if I'm going to use our subrecipients again as an example. Every one of our subrecipients has their complaint forms in Spanish. That shows that they are complying to some of those safe harbor provisions as well. And the safe harbor applies to the translation of written documents only. Written documents only. Now, here's the thing here. There may be some documents that I am not aware of that you in particularly use to assist your public. And those are the documents that we are particularly referring to. Safe harbor requires written translation of those vital, critical documents for the LEP group that meets that threshold. So again, and we're going to talk about that threshold here in just a second. On slide 19, now these are some of the thresholds that we've for safe harbor and those written translations. Now, what's important? If it's 1,000 or more in the eligible population in the service area or among those current beneficiaries, those documents, it's strongly recommended. It is recommended. Those documents are translated. Again, you have more than 5% of the eligible population or beneficiaries and or more than 50 in number translated the vital documents. More than 5% of the eligible population or beneficiaries and 50 or less in number translating written notice of right to receive free oral interpretation of documents. So now, again, if we have the 5% or not, we still must identify that limited English proficiency individuals. So we're either going to have those documents translated, or we're going to have something to say, well, we're going to have somebody to help you with this, and we need to write that out. And that last point, 5% or less of the eligible population of beneficiaries, and the number is less than 1,000 in number, no written translation is required. I would be a little cautious about that last one because our demographics are changing all the time. So again, even if you do not have that LEP population, you may have a couple. Those best practices for servicing those particular customers are always going to be something that's going to be to your advantage. So I would say I would treat everyone the exact same way. Of course, it states no written translation is required if you have 5% or less of the eligible population or beneficiaries or less than 1,000 in number. Again, for good faith purposes, I would treat them all the same, and that's what I would do just to remain compliant. On slide number 20, going into environmental justice, and I think this is going to be our last slide on the compliance here. And environmental justice, identifying and addressing as appropriate, disproportional high, and adverse human health environmental effects on its program, policies, activities on minority populations and low minority incomes. Now, I remember when I was a kid, living in Jeffersonville, Indiana, there was a big talk about the sewer plant being moved. And the sewer plant was currently very close to a area that had individuals that maybe didn't meet the thresholds of financial attributions, and so they lived in a particular area. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to be politically as correct as possible. So what happened there? The town was discussing moving this sewage plant to a area populated mostly with non-minority individuals, and that was a big uproar. So we have to address those individuals, whether they're affected by different circumstances, in particular when it's addressing environmental justice issues. What happened with that particular sewage plant? It didn't move. It did not move. So that area where the minorities were populated are still being affected. So, and they were the individuals that with the low income. And unfortunately, that's usually how it works. But this, again, when we are going to be developing new roads, it is very important to have those women and minorities from that community on that planning board to discuss some of these issues even before they start building anything. We also, under environmental justice, want to ensure that the full and fair participation by all potentially affected communities in the transportation decision making process. Kind of like the example I just gave there. So we want everybody to have a voice on this, and want to prevent the denial of, reduction in, or a significant delay in the receipt of benefits by minority and low-income populations. So again, we must put it on the forefront to have these conversations with compliance, environmental justice, and those LEP individuals. If you have, again, like I said, if you have questions about that, I will definitely be around to answer. Slide 21 here. The good thing about this is something that we've never really had to enact, and I don't anticipate with the rapport that we have through the Office of Civil Rights with our subrecipients that we will, but non-compliant. If a recipient is found to be non-compliant by FHWA, the following sanctions can occur. Federal informal action. That's the preferred mechanism there. Federal corrective action plan. Well, I've been there before in other entities where I have to write some federal corrective action plans. Tell the federal government what we're going to do to be compliant. And that is the timeline which is set by the federal government. They'll more than likely give you a particular timeline to get your plan in order, if you will. Now, hopefully, you won't be someone that's anti-federal and say, hey, I just sent that plan. I don't need to send another one. That's not going to work because you can have your federal funding terminated. And that's the one thing that we definitely don't want to do. And for factual or threat non-compliance, we just want you to always have those plans ready just in case you're audited and to always do the right thing. And the last non-compliant action could be some hearing rights for those particular sub-recipients. I never want to get to this point. I will try my best to do any and everything to ensure that our sub-recipients are turning in their plans timely, accurately, and we also address any type of questions that they may have for us. Slide 22, continue with non-compliance here. If the subrecipient is found to be non-compliant by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, this is some of the action that we can prefer. We can take the informal action. That's the preferred mechanism. We can have them give us a corrective action plan. However, they're going to start addressing some of these areas where we have identified. If we're not getting the information that we need, then we can tell you, well, this is what you're going to need to do to have your plan approved by us. And also, there's some financial penalties for responsible entities. Some things, of course, we would never want to get to this. It's withholding funding or terminating or suspension of the contract or grant in whole or in part. Again, the Office for Civil Rights and Small Business Development, whether it's Mr. Melvin Bynes, whether it's Title VI Coordinator Tiffany Squire, whether it's Casey Ramsden Johnson, our Title VI liaison, or even myself, we will do everything to assist you in production of your Title VI plan. So if you have new personnel that has come into your facility, have them give us a call. We'll be more than happy to talk about Title VI. We'll be more than happy to share their last plans, some of their past practices, because we keep those plans. And, once we approve your plans, we're going to send those approval letters to those particular STEP recipients. Now, our last slide here is if we have any questions.
Let's see, I don't see any in the chat box right now. Great job, Mr. Thomas. Thank you guys for that presentation. Seems like it flowed pretty well.
I'll hang around for a couple minutes if anything pops up. Okay,
and Tanya had mentioned earlier this ties in nicely with our public involvement plan, with the demographics and all the languages spoken and that kind of thing. So we appreciate all you guys are doing. Do you feel like the training's getting out there? Do you feel like you're getting good trainings out there to us, to the state, I guess?
Well, we always look for different types of training that could assist us. And once we receive that training, we will definitely pass it on to our sub-recipients. So, yes, we do feel like the training that we have available now is very thorough. What we look at is the Department of Justice. They are usually on the forefront for different types of federal training like that, and that's something that we will definitely utilize moving forward.
Yeah, thanks for your time. If the NPO's ads, they might reach out, eventually, if they haven't already, to get some Title VI training here and there if they need it. but I know we get different reports and things throughout the year. So again, thanks guys, and have a good rest. Have a good rest of the day. I'm going to give a few announcements here, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, see, let's see. The rest of the audience, sorry, I went over a little bit. It's 12:12, so we ran over about 15 minutes. Really, the only other thing that I wanted to go over were the announcements, and they're in the agenda. So if you already left or whatever, but the next meeting is January 20th, 2021, and we got some shift links again. That'll be updated as we update that process, probably, or definitely, I would say. Personnel updates, James Ballinger, we heard from him today, new state highway engineer. Mikhail Pelfrey, new planning director. John Wilcoxon, retired. Jason Swallow is now acting performance measures coordinator. And he mentioned Ken Sperry's helping with maintenance materials, and Jason's helping traffic and equipment. Melvin Bynes, acting executive director, Office of Civil Rights, Small Business Development, which Vincent said. And Matt Cole, acting commissioner, Department of Vehicle Reg. Vicki Bourne, executive director, Office of Transportation Delivery, do the transit and all that. And then Tim Layson is appointed new director, Division of Highway Design. District offices, Chris Jones, new District 11, chief district engineer. J.P. Tilley, new District 1 design supervisor. Blake Jones, new District 9 planning and design supervisor. And then NPOs and ads, we had Nate Heisler, new Barron River ad planner. Brandon Montgomery, a new Big Sandy ad planner. Luke Hill, a new Green River ad planner. And then FHWA Jill Asher joined them when she retired from here as FHWA Kentucky Civil Engineer for highways. And that is all that I have. Does anybody else have anything, questions or anything to address? Just put it in the chat box or email me or call me or something. Let me stop sharing this screen. And I'll put up my contact info that I have somewhere. You should be able to see my contact info here shortly. If you have any questions. Again, my name is Jacob Huber, and KYTC Division of Planning. Sincere note, thank you to all our speakers for your time, effort, and your materials. And thanks to the audience for your time and attention in Cyber World. Like I said, it ran over a little bit, but thanks for joining us. It's important to get the messages out there. And any ideas that you guys have for the next meeting, I'll probably send out I sent a Survey Monkey last time, but I'll probably send out the Microsoft Forms this time to get a quick response of what you guys would like to see next meeting. I'll stay on here for a few more minutes if there's any last minute questions. Otherwise, be safe, stay well, and have a great rest of the day. See you guys.
Thank you. Great job.
Yep. Thank you, Jacob. And thank you, rest of the speakers.
And I apologize. I should have mentioned the NPO meetings at 1 and the Highway District Office meetings at 1:30. But I think everybody that was invited to those they got a separate invitation to those. So that's the one thing I forgot to announce. I did leave a message in the chat box saying that, and I guess if anybody tries to show up or doesn't show up, you can blame me, and I'll call them or something. All right, see you guys. I'll stay on here for maybe a couple more minutes, maybe about 12:20, and then I'll shut down the meeting.